Thank you all so much for joining us here this evening. First of all, let me thank my team. We are time, and that's what we like to be. Of course, most of you who are joining us know me as your Super District 7 Commissioner, where I proudly serve over 360,000 DeKalb County residents, but I do not consider myself within a boundary. I look forward to helping all people within DeKalb. This evening, we are doing this town hall because many individuals have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. And as a result, we have individuals that are facing evictions who are very concerned. And also there are homeowners who may be facing adversity. So this evening, we are going to speak with you about alternatives and how to have the best outcome in this time. I'd like to begin by saying that on March 14th, most courts recognized a judicial emergency as a result of COVID-19. As a result, we are currently here, even in DeKalb County, not performing dispossessory actions for evictions. However, it doesn't stop there because the CARES Act was signed on July 25th, or actually it extends and prohibits evictions throughout July 25th. And that was a part of the economic stimulus relief package that many of you may be familiar with. So at this time, what we're going to do is speak with several experts who have come on the line, who are wonderful resources, who can assist and shed light so that we can ensure that you understand your rights, as well as what measures to do if you are in fine standing, but you only want to lower your interest rate. Because we have a wonderful real estate professional with us this evening, and we're going to talk about those rates because they are the lowest that they have been in a long time. So without further delay, I will introduce our panel members this evening, and I will begin with Mr. Fariz Morani. And Fariz, he is the CEO of Access Loans and Financing of DeKalb County. He is a mortgage lender, and his company was actually founded in 2011 with the goal of helping individuals and communities attain their dream of home ownership. He has helped hundreds of families with financing needs and has assisted them in transforming from apartments into homeowners. Through larger homes, families have improved their quality of life by sending children to better schools and providing them with the space they need to grow. Without delay, we'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Morani, for joining this call. The next panel member that we have this evening is Carney Mahone. And Carney is the founder and executive director of Morningstar Urban Development. It is a nonprofit organization, and it actually specializes in housing development. Ms. Mahone is a people-oriented and passionate businesswoman. She is also an educator. She is a community leader, and she has worked as an expert with the focus on the determination of changing lives and building stronger communities through economic communities for low to moderate income families. Her 22 years of experience in real estate and mortgage industry, coupled with her motto, "Let's make it happen," helps families become economically self-sufficient and assist them in achieving the American dream of home ownership. Thank you so much, Ms. Mahone, for joining us this evening. I have worked with you on other panels, and it's always a joy because when we get together, wonderful things happen. And
thank you.
People. The last person that we have, but certainly not the least, is a wonderful friend by the name of Miss Faith Reed. Faith is a realtor extraordinaire. She is a veteran realtor and new home lifestyle specialist with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate and Metro Brokers. She has marketed new home communities in several counties in the metro area and has personally sold thousands of homes during her 26-year career. Reed has won numerous awards for sales production and earned Community Magazine's top 100 Atlanta Realtors for several years. She is a Phoenix Lifetime member of DeKalb Realtors, a member of the Top Producers Club, and was the recipient of the Mary Nelson Realtor Spirit Award. And this award she received in 2012 as Realtor of the Year, and the Women's Council for Realtors Georgia 2016 Member of the Year. She is also a past president of the DeKalb Association of Realtors, state president of the Women's Council of Realtors Georgia, and is a past regional vice president for the National Women's Council of Realtors. Currently, Ms. Reed serves on the board of directors for the Georgia Association of Realtors, as well as several key communities of the National Association of Realtors. She is a very passionate advocate, and she is a Golden R President's Club Major investor in the Realtor PAC, which is the most powerful PAC advocating for property rights and homeownerships at the federal level. In 2018, Reed was introduced to the National Association of Realtors Hall of Fame. Thank you so much, Ms. Reed, for joining us. We are pleased to have you with us. And
has joined the conference.
We are not going to delay. Allison, are you with us? Because I don't think I see the proper screen at this moment.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm with you, ready to go forward.
Okay, so let's move into the presentation. Okay. Start on the purpose. Okay, now we're together again. Okay, so this evening, as I said earlier, we will be discussing options to help homeowners and apartment renters retain their homes and apartments as they avoid foreclosure and ensure the best possible outcome for those individuals. What we're going to do tonight is actually start with a video that I think is a wonderful lead-in to the discussion. And Allison, if we will play that video at this time.
Okay, just a second.
The new Federal CARES Act stopped some landlords from filing evictions between March 27th and July 25th. Landlords covered under this law cannot file for eviction if you do not pay your rent during this time and cannot charge you any fees for not paying your rent. But you can still be evicted if you break your lease in another way. Your landlord cannot file an eviction for non-payment if you live in federally subsidized housing. The most common types of subsidized housing are public housing, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and Section 8 project-based housing. You also cannot be evicted for not paying your rent if your landlord has a federally backed mortgage. If your landlord does file an eviction case during this time, say answer that you live in subsidized housing or you believe your landlord has a federally backed mortgage. If you are served with an eviction, contact a lawyer right away. Your county may have additional rules about evictions during this time. Contact your local court if you have questions. Learn more at georgialegal.org.
Okay, thank you so much, Allison, for that video. The video itself is actually produced by Legal Aid, and it is a wonderful intro, I think, to the conversation. Tonight, what we have actually done is divide the various groups that we will be addressing into 3 different segments as it relates to homeowners and renters. The first group, and Allison, if you will just pick up the slide, is non-affected homeowners. Non-affected homeowners do have options. These individuals may only wish to lower their interest rate because of the lower rates at this time. Also, we will speak directly to apartment renters. And last but not least, we will talk to those who may have lost jobs and have absolutely no income. So at this time, I would like to fully engage Mr. Morani so that we can begin the conversation. And I am going to move to the next slide. And the first area that we will discuss are homeowners who have not been affected at all. So if you will, I'm going to allow you as the expert to lead the conversation. We have already received several questions, but I think throughout the course of the conversation, many of those will be answered. So thank you so much. And what can you tell us right now about homeowners who may only look to take advantage of the lower interest rates?
Thank you, Commissioner, for having me on this panel. So for homeowners that are looking to lower their monthly mortgage payment, I will share some knowledge about two different options that they can actually consider at this moment. These two options are available to those homeowners whose income have not been affected at this moment, but would still like to lower their mortgage payment. As we all know that the interest rate is at the lowest possible in times that we've seen. And this is a perfect time for an individual homeowner to consider an option of refinancing their home mortgage. Refinancing is a great option. Anytime if you're considering refinancing, what you want to do is you want to analyze what the closing costs will be versus what your monthly savings would be. Whenever you're refinancing it, you will lower your principal and interest, but you want to make sure that you can justify the savings versus the cost. Some of the homeowners are not aware, but you can really, roll over the closing cost into the new loan that you're signing up with. So you do not have to come out with anything out of pocket. Versus you can also amortize the loan for a longer period of time through which you can lower your payment. But eventually, if your interest rate is anywhere above, I would say 3.75 at this moment, this is a perfect time for you to consider refinance and look at the opportunity to see how much you could save on a monthly basis. The second option, which could not be applied to a lot of homeowners, but it's important to shed some light on it. It's a program called recasting, which a lot of homeowners are not aware of. What a recasting is, if you currently have your mortgage with a mortgage service provider, let's take an example of Bank of America, and you're currently making all your payments and you're current on your mortgage payment, you could pick up your phone and call your mortgage service provider and ask them if they would allow you to recast the mortgage payment. What a recasting is, basically, they would ask you to bring a lump sum payment towards your principal balance of the mortgage. And once you pay, that lump sum payment, they will be able to take the current mortgage interest rate and bring it down significantly. This is an option for homeowners, again, that are looking without going through the refinance option and kind of getting the whole loan underwritten, similar to when you purchased a home. It's a more quicker and a faster option. But again, it's an individual lenders are providing that option. So you might want to check with your service provider that if the recasting is an option. But again, between these two options, you could definitely lower your monthly mortgage payment and save a few dollars. That can help you pay some other bills at this moment.
And let me also say, Mr. Morani, when we started to have the conversation, because I know personally, as an individual, I've bought and sold several houses. I can only remember doing a refinance once. But, one of the things that the light that I want to shed and ensure that people understand is sometimes options, plain and simply, are not presented. Recasting is not a new thing. It is just something that often, I believe, your mortgage holders don't discuss, because it removes a lot of the fees that are associated with refinancing. And I don't want individuals who may be a part of this conversation to feel, when you see the word small lump sum, I have seen some mortgage lenders that the fee to recast the loan and lower that interest rate may be $250. In instances, it may be $500. And when you are looking at the difference between a mortgage that may be 4.25 or 5 or more, and bringing it down, because this evening when we reach the segment where we talk with Faith, We'll talk about the current interest rates, and they are lower than they have been in years. I honestly can't remember a time that they were lower. So this is a perfect opportunity. And I'm also very excited because as we go through this presentation, if you are going to call your mortgage lender and ask them to recast your loan, we have a script. So we would like for you at that time to just take a snapshot of your monitor so that you have questions to ask, because here in DeKalb County, we're not going to have people perish for a lack of knowledge. And, you know, I'm just so happy to have folk around me that can help us help people. So I think that leads us very well into the next slide. And Mr. Moraney, I'm going to toss it back to you again and let you carry on.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. So some of the questions you can really ask your mortgage lender when you do pick up your phone and start calling them is, you know, do you offer the option of recasting? Can my payments be deferred without any penalties? Some of the homeowners that I've ran into, believe it or not, when I ask them what kind of loan do you currently hold right now, they're not even aware or knowledgeable about the loan that they have. And I have to remind them to kind of, you know, remember of, you know, what kind of loan type that you signed up for. So, you know, do you have a conventional loan? Do you have an FHA loan? Is it a USDA loan? So you really need to know what kind of loans do you have. Each of these loans have specifics through which you can kind of get more advice on to understand how you could save further. And again,
has left the conference.
The other thing you need to also ask, and this is the last point is very important, that a lot of mortgage lenders wouldn't specify to you on the phone call, but you need to ask them, will they be placing a deferment on your credit report? Will it show forbearance? Will it show deferment? So when the next time, 2 weeks later, you decide to wake up and you decide that, hey, I'm willing to refinance or I need to find another option, and you go to a mortgage lender to get that assistance, and they pull your credit, and if it shows in forbearance, currently the guidelines are a lot of lenders are not going to be able to assist you if your credit report reflects that you're in forbearance, because they want to see you that you're current on your mortgage payment. So you really want to be careful. I have ran into homeowners, you know, I mean, just today I had somebody that, you know, pretty much called me and asked me about
A participant has joined the conference.
When I looked at, when I asked them, can I, you know, when I was able to look at the credit report, it clearly showed that they were in forbearance. And they were very much surprised that they were not aware that when they made that phone call, that was going to reflect on their credit report. So that is a very, very, very important question to ask. You do not want them to place that on your report if you have other plans. Now, if you're definitely looking for a deferment for the next 3 months or 4 months or whatever the arrangement you can make with your mortgage lender, then it's okay to place that deferment. But some of the other questions you also need to ask them is, when will those payments resume? You know, when would, is it, you know, these payments are a deferment, they're not an abatement. So you want to be careful as you keep pushing these payments away. You want to make sure they're not getting collectively and falling back at you and bringing all at one time after the deferment, you know, term ends. So I think these are some of the very important questions.
I'd like to pop in there.
Sure.
One of the things that you said, you know, early on when this pandemic hit, first and foremost, I don't think anyone, whether it was from the federal level to the local, expected this situation to be of the magnitude that it has been. Now, you know, when you look at how things have sort of played out, on the federal level, they passed the first CARES Act, and within around 7 days, the money was depleted. They've now passed the CARES Act 3.5. Within about 5 days, it was depleted unless you were an agricultural based entity. That was the only person who could apply. And of course, on, I believe, Sunday, we passed the HEROES Act, which expands both CARES Act 1 and 2 to a different level financially, and now that is a $3 trillion package. But one of the things that you just said, and I want people to really understand, so that's when my little fingers go up over here. Many folks, you know, that people were on YouTube and various outlets saying, just call your bank and you can put a halt to your loan or your mortgage. But what they didn't understand was unless you restructure that loan, that halt or forbearance or whatever you choose to call it becomes a balloon payment after that 90-day period. And if you didn't have the money day one, we need to make sure, if that's the route you're going to choose, that 90 days later, you are able to meet that payment. So making sure, because what I have found from some conversations I've had is that people were moving forward in a direction that they didn't expect. But in many instances, once that mortgage company explained, well, if this is the option you're choosing, these are the consequences, they have walked away from it. So what we want to do is make sure that you have more palatable and proper alternatives here, so that when you're making the call to have the conversation, you have the proper conversation. So please make sure you copy these questions. And again, I'm going to toss it back over to you, Mr. Moran. Continue.
Sure.
And Allison, I'm not sure, Mr. Morani, are you ready for us to go to the next slide? Or
Yes, I am. Yeah, if Allison
Okay.
can just, yep. There you
yes,
go.
and feel free, we have to be interactive. I love the technology, because the last time we held our virtual town hall, between those who joined us on Zoom as well as live streams, we had almost 496 people. So this has allowed us to help people in a way that a general town hall, we were bringing in maybe 200 to 250, has not. So, you know, let's be interactive. If you need her to go back and forth, just tell.
Sure.
So Allison, I think we're ready for the next
Yes.
slide that speaks specifically to apartment renters. And I'll let you lead in with that one. And I'm also going to share some information from the county as well.
Great. So this particular information right now is for apartment renters that are currently renting into their apartments. Of course, you know, due to the pandemic that we're going through, there's a lot of renters that are struggling to keep up with their rent. And some of these tools or some of the resources that has been shared here in our team here is to give you some insight on what you need to be aware of and knowledgeable about what things you need to be knowing about your apartments. The first link here, it's very important. So if you have your iPhone or your Android, this is a perfect slide to take a screenshot. This particular slide actually has a resource link of a website that pretty much you can go onto and log in and just put your zip code in it. And the website is actually called, and here's a sample of the website. You just go there. You pretty much just, you know, these are multi-family properties, so these are mostly for the apartment complexes. So don't let me confuse you this with a single family home. These are only for apartment renters. So if you go to the site and you scroll down pretty much to this, and here is just a sample to show you on the right-hand side, you can put a zip code of anywhere in the United States. And if you put the zip code, you can populate all these apartment complexes that are available within that zip code. What this website is telling you is these are the apartment complexes that are that have a moratorium from the federal government, or they are backed up
A
with
participant has
they're
left the
backed up with
conference.
the federal loans. And what federal government is doing to help these apartment landlords or the owners is they have deferred their mortgage payment, have a minimum to 4 months all the way up to 12 months. So what you need to be doing is just, you know, having a general knowledge of your own zip code. If you live in one of these apartments and they have been on this list, then you are aware that your landlord or
A participant has joined the
or your
conference.
property manager is part of this list and their mortgage has been deferred, through which they have a little bit leverage to work with you. You do not want to use this tool to threat them and say, I don't want to pay my rent, you know, and you don't want to use those terms, but you want to take the soft approach of kind of just checking the tool and saying, are you getting any help further from your lender? In this case, you would find out that they are, since this loan is an SBA loan or a federal backed up loan, through which you can ease up the conversation and they have more willingness to work with you. So this is a very important site, very important resource that everybody should take a note of it. and definitely utilize it if it's needed to be. And I've played with it. It's really a good tool to have. This was shared by one of my good friends, and I decided this was a perfect thing for all the apartment renters to have. So Allison, if you could
Absolutely.
take us back to the slide, that would be great.
And let me also sort of pop in at this juncture, because when the CARES Act was passed, and on March 27th is actually when the Georgia Supreme Court, they entertained and approved a new rule that prevents our bars landlords who are seeking to evict tenants for non-payment to actually take any action until after July 25th. But also, they must sign an affidavit at the time they file an eviction that indicates that they are not receiving any CARES Act money and that they are not an SBA underwritten loan. Because early on, individuals did not know where they could go to find out, because most renters do not know who's underwritten the loan for the apartment community in which they live. So this particular website is really important if you are a renter, so that you understand, because these particular apartments are under moratorium and they cannot evict you during this time. Now, does that mean you just plain and simply don't pay your rent? Absolutely not. But if necessary, you need to have the conversation now, because I know, Mr. Morani, you and I had spoken about, there are some of these apartment communities that have been given deferments for up to 12 months. So technically, they are not paying. So yeah, of course, things like water and other essentials have to be paid. But I can say on behalf of the county at this time, we are not disconnecting or shutting off water or any essential services that are needed due to this pandemic. And again, I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure. Thanks for adding that. The other thing you also want to be aware of, if your particular community or your apartment complex is part of the Georgia Apartment Association, or are they a member of that association? Because if they are, they actually had a memo that was pretty much rolled out a few weeks ago that I was informed by one of the property managers who was part of the Georgia Apartment Association, that they have come up with a plan of offering a deferment program. The program could be for it's individual and it's case by case basis, but the program is between 3 months and 6 months, where they can allow you to defer your rent for the month of April and the month of May, and just break it down, long as you have an active lease and in place, and your lease is not getting basically expire before the due date. So this is, and again, important question. If they're part of this association, then they had a memo that's rolled out that you could also ask them about the deferment program. The last thing, which is very, very important, where you want to be very careful if your community is not part of the Georgia Apartment Association, or they're not on the federal the moratorium website, you want to be careful if their loans are held privately and they're not SBA loans, then you want to, those landlords have no deferment in place at this moment, and they still have to pay their mortgage, in which they also are looking forward to collecting rent. So you want to kind of plan accordingly to kind of make payments, or try to come up with a payment plan arrangement with them. Although the eviction is on hold, like the commissioner said, till July 25th, but at the same time, you want to do what you can on your own just to pay your bills, so they don't accumulate down the road for you in the long run. If you want to add anything else on this, Commissioner, if not, then I think we can move on to the next slide, Allison.
No, you go right on to the next slide. I am now reading comments. I'm multitasking.
Awesome.
I had someone request that we post this link in comments, so I'm doing that. You're doing a fine job. You just keep the boat moving.
Awesome. This is just one of the forms that that is available from Georgia Apartment Association. These are for apartment complexes that are part of this association. They have released this form for the members. It's a simple form that they pretty much fill out and put all the information for the apartment and kind of help you with the deferment program. So this is what the form looks like. But again, you need to first find out if they're part of this association, and if they are, you need to talk to them about this and say, hey, is there anywhere I can defer my rent? And they'll be able to make arrangements. It's kind of a legal binding agreement, but you can say it's an amendment to your lease pretty much. Thanks for adding that link in the chat. I see that. That's great, Commissioner. Allison, I'm ready to move to the next slide. So some of the options again that we've discussed earlier, and I think I'm just going to kind of summarize it, where we've talked about the options. You want to always try to see if, first of all, if you can get an abatement. A good conversation from abatement would be, I have read the news, and I've ran into some colleagues of mine that were renting some spaces in commercial industry and commercial properties. And believe it or not, due to the pandemic, since things were shut down, there have been a few landlords that have abated their rent for the month of April due to the fact that businesses were not open completely. I'm saying this particular criteria that I'm discussing is for business owners. But again, you want to try, if you're a small business owner and you have not opened your business in the month of April, you want to reach out to your landlord and talk about abatement. You want to start there. And if you can get them to work with you on the abatement, then you want to talk about deferment. The other option that you can also consider and think about and strategize is individualize and customize your deferment program according to your current lease. So let's say if your lease is ending in 2 years, and if you haven't paid your rent for April and May, you can ask your landlord if he can extend your lease for the following 2 more months and kind of roll it into your lease and plan accordingly, because the landlord also wants to have a tenant that had always been paying on time before March and has been a good tenant. And they, at this moment, honestly are not looking to replace tenants. They're looking to keep the existing tenants in place and willing to work with them. Long as you have been a good tenant with them and paid your dues up till February, till March, I think you have a good chance of getting your deferment, or you're getting your balances rolled into their current lease. So these are the 3 options that you want to kind of try. You want to start with abatement, move to deferment. If not, you want to kind of roll your rent into the current lease. And I think you have a good chance of...
Has joined the conference.
So I think these are some of the options that you can use, not only in apartments, not only in your mortgage payments, but also in your commercial lease agreements.
Absolutely. And let me also say, I see that Ms. Rashea Brooks from the DeKalb County Chamber of Commerce is on the line. And last week, as a matter of fact, the weeks go so quickly now, we actually had a town hall that looked at the CARES Act and also the CIDL funds, the coronavirus injury disaster loans. And, many small businesses are still hurting, but I am also aware of many that have received CIDL funds as well as PPP monies from the Paycheck Protection Plan. So those are all things as well that if you know small businesses that are in need of assistance, we have become that depository in District 7. So please feel free to reach out to us, because you are absolutely correct. As we are speaking with small business owners, many of them are being creative. I'm finding that landlords are not in a rush to evict, because currently many businesses, in all honesty, will not survive this. They are very aware of that. It's not in their best interest to be difficult. Right now, people are looking for solutions. So knowing these options and being able to talk about them logically when you speak with your leaseholder, very, very important. So thank you for that. And again, I'm going to turn it over because you're doing a fine job.
Great. Awesome, Allison. So the next slide here is some of the resources that are available for DeKalb residents in particular. that are put together. This is another great slide to take a screenshot. I'm sure Allison is going to post this somewhere after this panel is over, but these are great tools for if you've lost your job and you have no income at all at this moment and you're looking for some assistance. I think these are some great resources that you can have contact information and reach out to these individual organizations to seek assistance at this moment.
And let me say, I'm reading the comments so that I can help steer the conversation as they come in. And I had one individual that said, we're talking about the renters, but what about individuals who rent houses?
I'd like to say something on that, Commissioner. So this is what I will tell you. House renters are no different than a landlord that owns an apartment. Again, I think honestly at this moment, it's the historical data. How you've been a tenant with him or her till March will determine how he's going to work or she's going to work. I have been into a situation where I've rented a property. I've been in a situation where I'm a landlord, and it's a seesaw situation. So I totally understand. We might have some callers that are joining right now that might be landlords. And again, we're not here to hurt the landlords and help the renters versus help the renters and hurt the landlords. We're here to balance the equilibrium. So what my point here to you is the house renters, you would use the same conversation and open approach and say, hey, look, I've lost a job or I've lost hours at work and this is where I am at, and just be honest and be open. I think the conversation is all about having an open-ended communication. Rather than ignoring their calls and ignoring their text messages, you can pick up your phone and you can say, hey, I'm here. I would love to talk to you. This is what I'm going through.
A participant has joined the conference.
Work with me, and I'm willing to look. Let me tell you, if your rent is $1,000 right now, and even if you can pay $100 to that landlord, that's good faith. And I'm telling you, that landlord is going to be working with you all the way through this pandemic and further, because again, you have taken care of his property. You've been in communication with him and her. So I think at this point, what my advice to you as a house renter is to seek communication with your landlord on a weekly basis. Even if you're looking for a job, just call them and say, hey, look, I found something and I'm starting here, I'm starting there, wherever your situation is. Just make sure you are communicating through which they can also understand, and they will be definitely willing to work. As far as another question just popped up, Commissioner, and I'll take that along with this conversation, it's in reference to fees. Just so you know and you're knowledgeable about it, during this pandemic till July 25th, landlord cannot file an eviction and they are not obligated to charging you late fees. So even if they send you a letter, even if they send you a notice that shows late fees, don't get panicked about it. You know, those fees are not going to apply. You will only have to commit and pay the rent that is due. So if you are worried about your late fees at this moment, I would not worry about them right now. They will waive them long as you're making your actual payments. So I just wanted to kind of connect there and make sure that I add and ease up that you're not stressing about late fees.
Right. And, you know, you wish we lived in a perfect world with full disclosure and all of those wonderful things, because the truth of the matter is many individuals that have multiple properties have applied for monies under the CARES Act and through the Paycheck Protection Plan. So if they are successful in acquiring those monies, if they do move forward with an eviction, they are going to be faced with filing that affidavit of disclosure. And there is no way they can legally evict you or hold you accountable for those monies after receiving those funds. Because right now we're in a situation where this is not a tug of war, this is a tug of life. People are trying to survive. So if we, and when I say we, the federal government is providing you assistance, it's because they expect you to assist those who fall underneath your food chain and to help you survive this period. So I did want to say that, but you're very right in saying that we all have to take the same approach here to get to the bottom. And also one word that I like to use is document, document, document. As much as humanly possible, send the email, then pick up the phone and make the call. Or
Attorney
have the
Carrie Johnson
conversation.
Has joined the conference.
And then, once you have literally had the conversation, send the email and recap the conversation. In the event that it becomes necessary to have documented proof of the conversation and the attempts at resolution, because that's always important, because I always think of the court of law part of this too, if it becomes necessary.
I think, Allison, we're ready for the next slide, if you're ready.
And we do have a landlord that asks what funds are available to them. Everything that is available under the coronavirus injury disaster relief, the CARES Act would also be available to you. I know that we just passed, or shall
Attorney Carrie Johnson
has left the conference.
I will say that we just passed the HEROES Act, and additional funds will
A
become
participant has
so
left
make
the
sure
conference.
that you keep your eyes open for that, and we will post it to our website so that you know how to go about applying for those funds.
Great. So before I hand over, I guess, back to Commissioner and to the next panelist, I just wanted to thank you, Commissioner, for having me on this panel. My contact information is here on this slide. I could be reachable by email or by phone call. Due to the volume of calls I'm getting right now with the refinance and the lower interest rate, I'm at a turnaround time of 24 hours window. So if you do send me a call, or you send me a message, or you send me an email, and if you don't hear from me, please allow me 24 hours to get back to you. But I would be happy to help you in any ways I can. If you have any other questions, regardless of this panel, and again, and you just need an advice or a second opinion, I'll be happy to take the call and give you my knowledge and wisdom and the time that it needs. But Commissioner, I really appreciate for the kind introduction and the humbleness that you've showed throughout this whole group meeting here. And I look forward to working and helping all the DeKalb residents. And now I'll hand over the call back to you, and I'll still be here on the panel.
Okay, and thank you so much. And let me say that what we do truly takes a village. And I am so grateful to have people like you and Faith. I think everybody on this call, Carney, I'm not sure, but they are all in my district, Super District 7.
Carrie
And
Johnson
this is
has joined the
how
conference.
we are able to help people by having the conversation with people who are qualified to have the conversation. So thank you for what you do. And at this time, we will go ahead and move into Ms. Carney Mahone's presentation. I know that you have worked with me, and I remember last year during the winter, we actually held a seminar for individuals who may have been facing any forms of hardship, who were in jeopardy of losing their homes or concerned. And I remember that being on a Saturday, and I believe you all were able to help between 50 and 70 people maintain their homes. So I want to first say thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you bring to the table. And at this time, I will allow you to just move right into your presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochran Johnson. I certainly appreciate you as well, and appreciate our partnership and how we are helping DeKalb County residents. On my presentation, I just really wanted to make sure that homeowners were aware of some of the things that are available to them and some of the things they should do or don't do. Number one, if you can pay your mortgage, make sure you do that. I understand that the forbearances agreements that are out there, you need to make sure that you understand that very, very carefully, because as Mr. Marani said earlier, there are some things that you need to be aware of, that you make sure that you ask your lender and make sure that you understand it, because most of the calls that we're getting is because people do not understand. Call your lender first if there are any workout plans to see if there are any available, and keep in mind that
a participant has joined the conference.
A verifiable hardship. If you haven't had a workout before in the last 2 years, or if you're 37 days from foreclosure, those are things that you need to keep in consideration. I am happy to report that a lot of the people that have been in foreclosure are receiving workouts. Some of them still need to understand what is going on, but make sure you ask the pertinent questions. That's the main thing. Make sure you get an understanding. Out of all that getting, get an understanding, because you need to know what will happen after the forbearance, after the deferments, and after whatever agreement that they are putting in place right now. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to call a HUD housing agency only if you're not getting any help from your lender. If you need help in providing correct information to your lender, or if you need clarity in this process. And I think that that's the key word, having clarity in the process. There are no guaranteed workouts, not even from your lenders. There are guidelines, there are overlays, there are other things that have been put in place, but it's different from when it was in 2010. Lenders are more knowledgeable now. They're more willing to work with people. So make sure you ask the questions. Next slide.
Yes.
For renters, at some point in time, evictions will start again. After July the 25th, that is going to be the date that you need to understand that it will start again. There are no get out of paying rent free cards, so don't chance it. If you can pay your rent, please, please pay your rent. If you can even pay just a portion of your rent, it's good to set it aside to see how this is going to play out, because we don't know. Landlords are desperate because they're not getting monies. Landlords are trying to understand and be cooperative and participating. They're trying to do workouts with the renters, but at some point, in some place, in some time, it needs to be understood that they're going to want their money. They're going to need it. But it's good to know that the CARES Act has taken care of a lot of things, and it's even wonderful to know that the HEROES Act was passed. That is great news for a lot of landlords, because there's some subsidies in there for you. There's some workouts for you. All you have to do is apply. Once they get the HERO Act up and running, great. Okay. If you are behind as a renter, contact your landlord first and see if they will grant a repayment plan after this is over. I'm sure that most people are going to want to work with you. Just as Mr. Marani said, nobody wants to displace a tenant that has been paying on time. Now, if you haven't been paying on time, that might be a different story. But if you've been paying on time and your landlord can trust that you will continue to pay on time, chances are they're going to work it out with you, okay? Contact the rental resources that has already been displayed. There are some that I have on there as well that can help you to at least pay 1 month, possibly 2 months, and that's if you can continue to pay afterwards. So some of us or some of you all might just need 1 payment or 2 payments. There are organizations out there that's willing to help you with that, as long as you can pay afterwards. That's the normal rule of thumb, that you need to be able to not put a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. So basically it means that even though you're out of work right now, chances are in 60 days, you might have something planned out, you can work it out, and they want to make sure that you can do what you say you can do after this 1 or 2 months are over. And that also goes for mortgage people that need help with paying their mortgage. If you just need 1 or 2 months, the same resources can possibly help you, okay? Contact your local fair housing agency if you feel like there's some type of abuse that's been demonstrated. Make sure that landlords are doing what they're supposed to do in accordance to what has already been put in place, with no evictions until July the 25th. We do have some cases where landlords are not participating in that. They are not actually going along with the guidelines that are set, because they feel like they need their money and they feel like that the people should be able to pay. However, you need to be educated on this process so that you can know how to inform them of what the rules or the guidelines are, okay? And then last but not least, contact the HUD Housing Agency for rental counseling and options. Next slide. Okay, so these are some resources that probably has already been displayed. I do know that these do have COVID-19 monies to be able to help renters and mortgage people that have mortgages. So you might want to take a screenshot of this and contact those people on tomorrow or sometime this week if you're needing help. And I think that ends my presentation.
And let me say to you, let's just let this particular list sit here for a minute. and make sure that you all that are watching who may be in need or know individuals who are. Another thing that we're going to do, we will be posting this entire presentation as long as I have the permission of Mr. Marani and also Ms. Mahone. We would like to post this to our website so that individuals can go and they can actually view this and pull information that they may need. So thank you so much for giving us all these resources. And also we do want to go to the last page so that individuals, and let me ask you, Ms. Mahone, are you still currently working with individuals and also processing people who may be in need of assistance with retaining their homes?
Absolutely. We are before COVID-19 had picked up, I think I saw a question in the chat box. The default cases had already started flowing in, which is why we were doing the workshop that we did back in November. And so since then, we've had an influx of people that are in default. So believe it or not, even though all of the fallout has happened with COVID-19, there are some great things that have come out of this, because a lot of homeowners are being able to stay in their homes who were on the edge of foreclosure, but this has kind of helped give them somewhat of a bailout. And so that's why it's very important to make sure you ask the questions, get educated as much as you can, and definitely contact the resources that has been provided.
And you know, you gave me a great segue into the next part of my presentation, because when you talked about several people being at your door who were at the point of eviction, and this has given them somewhat of a bailout, you know, prior to COVID, many of you may have noticed, because I just tend to keep my finger on things, because I'm over here in DeKalb worried about everything from gentrification to my elderly aren't selling their homes out of fear, when DeKalb County has the ability to go in and freeze those taxes. And that tax digest will not apply until the home transfers hands and goes into the next homeowner, especially if you are 65 years of age or older. So for anyone that's listening that needs to have the conversation with someone, make sure they're aware of that. And if they need assistance, I help my seniors every day so that they are not fearful of losing their homes. But at this time, we're just gonna roll right on over and have the conversation with Faith, because I had become really concerned, because many of the homes that I was seeing and the rates that they were selling for, it was totally a seller's market. Buyers were at a huge disadvantage, or shall I say, if you were looking for a home and actively out there, things weren't staying on the market more than 2 weeks to 3 weeks.
Or less.
Or less. So at this time, if we could go ahead and just transition, and we can get Miss Faith on the call with us so that we can have the conversation. Are you there?
Here. Thank you, Lorraine, for having me. And it's been wonderful listening to Carney and Faris.
Yes.
It's been wonderful. These are people who are my peers in the industry, and I think we all work together. But if I can, Lorraine, I just want to provide an overview of the real estate market that we're in this COVID-19. And you know, January 2020 started out great.
It did.
It started out great. All the indicators were there for another strong market. Mortgage rates were low. Obviously, they're lower now, but they were low then. And home sales were really strong. And then mid-March, here comes COVID-19. And our conversation today is now about the fallout from that. The full economic impact of COVID-19 on real estate really is not known yet. But the economy has been hit very hard. We can all agree. We really don't know what a recovery timeline is going to look like, but the data shows that there's a slight downturn of new home purchases in Georgia. This time of year is typically our strongest spring home buying market. Everybody knows about spring home buying in Georgia. especially in the Metro Atlanta area, and we are down approximately 22% from last year.
Mm.
Google's analytics as well as Zillow stats have shown that home searches have been down as much as 60% from last year. So yes, while we're still in a seller's market, it could change very quickly. As we saw in 2008 and 2009, where it flipped from a seller's market, a hot seller's market, to a very, very hot buyer's market. And that's all driven by supply and demand. In our state, real estate has been deemed an essential industry. So realtors have had to be creative in how and adapt to a lot of new concepts to continue to provide services with the challenges of, of social distancing or distancing rules. So there's several ways now that we have to engage buyers who are quarantined in their homes. And we're starting to see a lot of virtual tours. I don't know if you've looked online, but there's a lot of virtual tours that people are engaging now. And that, I think, has helped us have a total collapse of our industry. We're even seeing lenders and closing attorneys and everybody that works with real estate are finding creative ways to get things done. But I want to talk about the two big mitigating factors that I see that have had great impact in real estate. And a lot of it was covered by Farees as well as Carney. And the number one thing is workplace working conditions have drastically changed. And this has caused fear of, well, is my job going to be here tomorrow? So the sustained working future of many people have caused them to postpone selling their homes, or even renters who were thinking about 2020 was going to be the year I was going to purchase my new home. Those fears have taken hold, and that has really caused a reduction in the amount of people buying, even with these low interest rates. So many who had hopes of dreams of making, their home purchases this year, they're finding themselves in the unemployment lines now with no great hope of when they'll return to work anytime soon. But I want to say this, and this is very important for all of those homeowners who are out there who currently own a home. Owning a home is the greatest and the fastest way to build wealth in America.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Ms. Reed, I have to interject there because when you look at wealth and wealth disparities, and when you look at communities, you often see that in many instances, I don't think we understand the importance. And that's been one of the things that I've pushed, because in order for us to level the playing field and create a trajectory where we have communities that thrive, because we've got to move away from black and white communities.
Come on.
Communities where people have resources and money, capital and access, and they build wealth, you get a totally different outcome. And I have been amazed at how many individuals I have encountered during my tenure here that did not understand the value of home ownership and the importance and correlation that it has to individual wealth. So that's something that I definitely want us to talk on. And I also want you to discuss, the interest rates that I went online today and I sat there and I ran all the numbers. And what does that mean? Because there are many individuals who are out there right now who are renting, who are dealing with that landlord and their situation, who could honestly own a home for less than they're paying the landlord. Let's speak to that, because maybe there's an opportunity also to educate and steer people into a different direction, so to speak.
Well, in real estate, we don't use the word steer.
Well, listen, because we want to, once this call is over, we all want to be in good standing. So,
Yes, yes. But I understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely correct. We should,
yes.
we really, if there was ever a time for those of us who can to take advantage of acquiring real estate, it's now.
Mhm.
It's now. Yes, there's not a lot of product on the market right now. I had a house that I put on the market on Thursday evening, and we were under contract Friday night, and I had to go over 14 offers with my seller. Yeah. So this is what we're experiencing, and this was 2 weeks ago in the middle of COVID-19. When it comes to interest rates, when you see interest rates this low, if you can move, you need to move. If you can jump on it, if you have some form of income, you need to jump on it. There are so many, and I know Fariz will back me up on this. There are so many programs out there that it's cheaper for you to own that home than to pay rent.
Yes.
So if you can go ahead and buy, now is the time to buy. And what we're finding is a lot of people are, they're shying away from, calling the lender because they are afraid that maybe their credit profile may not be the best. That's not a reason not to call the lender, because lenders now have resources that can help you do repairs, and they're like your counselor. They'll tell you what you need to do to put yourself in a position, because you may be struggling trying to say, I need to pay this, I need to pay that, I need to do this, and you talk to a lender and they're taking you in a total different direction, opportunities that you didn't know were out there for you.
A participant has left the conference.
Say, definitely, with the interest rates this low, take advantage of it. You may have to shop for a while because there's not a lot out there. And we're starting to see buyers come out now. This past 2 weeks has been the busiest for me it's ever been since this hit. I've been busy, and I know the lenders have been busy. People are realizing now is the time to jump on it. But if you're a homeowner, do everything that you possibly can to hold on to your home. Carney talked about all the resources that are there, places you can call your servicer. I think Fariz mentioned it. Call your servicer. Even if you are not in distress right now, find out what your options could be, because with this COVID-19, your situation could change on a dime. So I want to say this too, that in our community, there are a lot of responsible homeowners. There are people who have worked hard. They may not have a lot of money in their savings. They may not have, portfolios. They may be paying their mortgage every month, and just a situation like this pandemic can put them in a situation where, they're at loss of, losing their home. Lenders, as Fariz said, they will work with you. If you've been paying your mortgage, your lender does not want your house back. They want you to stay in your house. In terms of one of the things that I think you wanted me to talk about, Lorraine, was trends. So what are we seeing now that people have had a chance to be at home for 2 to 3 months? What are they looking for when they are starting to buy? Well, interestingly enough, it's been interesting. People used to figure out where they wanted to live. Where? Now, the big question is how you want to live where you live. The reason for that is because we saw people have to quarantine, families had kids, they had to separate the kids from the adults, from the seniors. So some of the trends that we're seeing is people are wanting multiple spaces that they can retreat to. So homes that have more bedrooms and more bathrooms are more attractive. As you know, I work with builders. We've had this conversation. This is what I do. And we've had this conversation with builders. The day of the 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house is extinct. That is not going to work anymore. We need 4 or 5 bedrooms, but we don't want to pay more. So builders have to find a way, even with an entry-level home. It's not that it's a big home, but it has to have those components because people's lifestyles have changed. How they live has changed. They want more bathrooms. Another thing that we're finding is, we have become so dependent on Wi-Fi. What people are asking us for now, they want Ethernet. They want to be able to plug their computer into the wall because with everybody staying at home, the strength has been challenged, has been weakened. So those are some of the trends that we see, and it doesn't have to be in an expensive home. In a basic starter home, we're asking the builders to start putting Ethernet connections in every bedroom. Forget about cable jacks. We want Ethernet jacks in those rooms. So, we're wiring these houses with the type of wiring that they can do that. So people don't have connectivity issues. So those are some of the trends. I know you had a question for me.
Well, and I'm going to have Allison, there was another slide, but I like the conversation. And I also want to say at the same time, I'm over here and I'm reading the comments. And I believe it's Miss Colette, who I think I've worked with through the office a few times. She indicated that we seem extremely optimistic at a time when there is a pandemic as it relates to the real estate market and the outcomes. And I want to say, and also that people should wait and see. What I personally am waiting to see, because I have some interest in acquisition, I do believe what we're going to see at this point is a leveling off. Because those of you who are intricate in the industry, because I'm not a real estate agent, I'm a layperson. As I indicated last year, I was absolutely floored by the market rates and the prices that I saw simple homes actually selling for in the marketplace. And I thought, my God, the cost of a basic home is now outrageous. And when I say basic, perhaps it's that 3-bedroom, 3-bath home selling for $400,000 and $500,000, depending on what community you desire to live in. And what I'm looking for and watching carefully is to see that there is almost a stabilization, because I felt in many instances homes were being overpriced, but this, of course, demand sets the price. A home doesn't sell for more than people are willing to pay or the appraised value.
That's
so
correct.
What we're seeing was acceptable, but it was shocking to me because I didn't feel the value was there. So I think personally, even being a layperson, what we're going to see is, I think prices are going to begin to drop. But I did also see a posting today, an article that was written that said that due to inflation, there is a concern that housing may become scarce and prices may go up even higher. So I do think we're still at that point of wait and see and figure it out. And I think whatever a person chooses to do, they have to be wise. I know as a consumer, I've always known a good buy when I saw one. Every home that I've ever bought, a good buy, and I knew it. And this is, thank you, Allison. This is actually an article that I saw today by Bankrate. He's a senior mortgage reporter and specializes in market trends. And he said, there's a real chance that the coronavirus could bring inflation to home prices and mortgage rates. And, I know at this point it is still speculation and there is a lot out there, but, Ms. Reed, did you have any comment as it relates to where we're headed?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, our statistics that we just got out from our MLS, our multiple listing service, is showing that on our prices have gone up almost 2%. Since March. So as you said, it's supply and demand. The greater the demand, the higher the prices go. And as long as the value can be justified on an appraisal, those prices are going to go up. keep in mind that it's buyers who set the value of homes, not the seller. Buyers set the value of homes. It's
Has left the conference.
it's the seller, but it's the buyer who determines that value. Because if the buyer determines that, most buyers are using financing, and if the home can't appraise for the value that the seller is given, then the home has to be, the seller in most cases will have to adjust to the value. So buyers are determining value, not the sellers. And the market determines, the buyers and the market determines value.
May I say something with that?
Absolutely.
I do believe it's going to be a wait and see. I think that many people are thinking that the prices are going to drop. And I'm thinking that that is not a reality, because just as Faith said, the buyers do determine the value. Also, the fantastic thing about buying now is the fact that the rates are low enough to cause you to afford more home, because the house prices have increased drastically.
Yes.
And I'm amazed as well, been in the industry almost as long as Faith has, and I know Faith from long way back, but to see what you can get for $100,000 and $200,000, it's amazing to me, because that was not the case 20 years ago when I got into the business, 20 something years ago when I got into the business. But now people are having to really determine what their actual needs are versus what they want in a house, which is going to determine what the value is going to be in the days to come. I don't think we're going to have a flood of foreclosures. I don't believe that at all. I do believe there will be some, but I also believe that the prices might stay a little bit stable before the increase comes.
And that's an important point, Ms. Mahone, that you raise as it relates to interest, because I learned a long time ago the importance of the interest rate one receives when they purchase. With the rates being what they are for anyone who is interested in buying, I can't imagine a more ideal time.
And when Faith, when you and I were in the business, or you 26, me 23 now, years ago, interest rate were 8%, so we thought we were doing something. Now that they're 2.75, you know, one of the things that we do at Morningstar is we do assist home purchasers, home buyers. We try to get them up to the credit scores that they needed for the particular product that they want to be in. And that itself has also changed across the board, because people are needing higher credit scores to be able to purchase at this moment in time. Don't know when that will change or if it will change, but that always happens in a situation like this, where the lending guidelines tend to change. And maybe Mr. Maroney can talk about that. But the lending guidelines always seem to change to make that buyer have to reach a little bit higher to obtain. But listen, it is a great time to buy. We are still getting phone calls that people want to purchase because these interest rates are unbelievable.
I'd like to echo what Faith and Ms. Mahoney has said. So one of the important factors is, during this pandemic, we have overlay and guidelines. And I personally don't feel that the market is going to take any crash like 2008, because the bars have been set pretty high.
Yes.
Give you a quick example is, if when we qualify somebody at this moment, we are actually checking till the last day for the verification of employment. Along with that, if we have an investment loan that we're doing currently, we're not giving the borrower the rent income at all. So we're qualifying them very, 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 very well, in a matter that mortgage is not going to be defaulted anyway. So I totally agree that we're not going to see because we're not lending as flexible as we were.
Yes.
I mean, I've got almost, I don't mind sharing, but I've almost got 50 loans in the pipeline right now. And out of them, 25 is still a purchase. I get calls from realtors every day. I mean, today alone, I've got 3 contracts that came in and said, you know, I need loans. And again, we're still lending. So people are still buying homes. As far as the comment that we had in the chat box for the resident that put the comment about, how do you know if you're still making a good move on buying a home? I like to say what Faith said, pretty much what you need to do is look at the square footage of the home, and you need to look at the purchase price. And you need to kind of do the math for yourself, that if you were to buy a piece of land and construct a house upon it, how much would it cost you to build that home? So if you're buying a 300,000 square feet home for $250,000 with the 5% down, and you qualify and your mortgage is $1,600 a month versus you're paying $1,800 in rent, you're doing the best thing ever, because if you go to build that house, it's going to cost you way more. You were paying $1,800 in rent, and now you dropped it down to $1,600. So I personally feel that the lending guidelines are changing on a daily basis to accommodate the pandemic that we're going through. So we're only assisting borrowers that are definitely getting qualified to prevent that foreclosure that we had in 2008. And I'm still seeing a spike in, I had the best quarter2 than last year due to the fact that people are still purchasing.
Right.
And what I'm also going to do, because we did receive some questions, and Allison, thank you so much for always keeping me on track. We received, I'm going to respond to the first because it is from Ms. Thaxton, and she wanted to know, will DeKalb County be allocating funds towards rent assistance to prevent evictions and homelessness in the county? We are not allowed, we are not a lender as it relates to financing of mortgages. We will not be providing money towards assistance for homes and home ownership. What we are doing, we are currently working with homeless. We have housed homeless in multiple facilities during this time, and shelters during this COVID pandemic, that they are taken care of, and more than just housing people, because that's a temporary fix. In many instances, when you are dealing with individuals who are homeless, there are secondary issues that must be addressed. Generally, you are going to deal with issues, whether it is some form of addiction, there may be mental challenges that are in place. So we are working with homeless every day in a totality of ways, but we will not be providing money towards rent assistance. If individuals are in need of housing, they can contact us, and there are programs and opportunities that we have, and we will assist anyone who's displaced with housing. Another question that I have here is from Miss Veronica Thomas, and she has 5 questions, but we're gonna see here. An optimum time for a home purchase? What are the current interest rates? I think we covered that. Who are the best lenders? I do not think we can speak on lenders per se. I would say on that note, you need to just do your due diligence. One thing that I tend to do before I do things, and particularly when I bought my first home, I have conversations with people I trust. I suggest if you're in the buying market, you find yourself an agent that you trust, and generally that agent can connect you to people with whom they have had success. Oftentimes success replicates itself. So, and I also believe Miss Sandy Johnson is on this call, and Sandy lives in Super District 7. She is a wonderful real estate agent, and she's also going to be receiving a letter because she's been appointed to the Community Council 3. So thank you also for being on this call. So even individuals like Ms. Johnson, in Spanish, I do know. I'm sorry, what is that? Okay, so as it relates to an optimum time, as we said, these interest rates are truly at an all-time historic low, which makes it attractive if you are in the buying market. But again, there is a lot happening. So as Ms. Mahone said, keep watching the market. And I think you will know when it's time for you to purchase. Why are there so many foreclosures in South DeKalb? In 2008, when the initial crisis happened, many homes, and shall I say, across the United States, DeKalb County was not the only, but DeKalb was actually one of the hardest hit counties in the United States. Many loans were given, and during that time, those very stringent requirements that Mr. Morani discussed were not in place. People were given loans that had balloons and escalating payments on them, and they, in many instances, purchased more than they could afford, and the bank knew it at the time they issued the loan, but they still did so. And when it was time for those loans to mature and those payments escalated and the balloons came into play, many people lost their homes. During that time, there was an actual influx of LLCs to DeKalb County where people purchased homes. And, you know, one of the last things you want is to be next door in many instances to a renter or rental situation, because people that live in their homes generally tend to take more pride in the home and the community. So that is one of the reasons that we had so many foreclosures. But over the past several years, I've seen that begin to change and shift. And let's see, do we have time for another question? This is from Ms. Jenkins, and it says, as a renter in DeKalb County and living with an underlying medical condition, I have been unable to work for over a year now and feel like I am pretty much a forgotten demographic during this global pandemic. I'm now being told by my medical team to not venture out of my home under any circumstances. What avenues can someone like myself take in preventing from being legally evicted? I think we've answered that question during the course of this evening, but I will reach out to you personally. And then the very last question that I've seen here is renters' protection rights. What about landlords' protection rights? I'm a family on a fixed income with only one rental property, and we did discuss that as well. You are free to pursue PPP funds to cover those monies, as well as money through the CARES Act. So with that said, unless there are other questions, Allison, that you may have seen come in, I think we've answered them. And I would like to find out, I did have an attorney that was on the call with us earlier, Mr. Kerry Johnson. Mr. Johnson, are you on the call?
Yes, he's there.
Mr. Johnson?
He's there. He just needs to unmute.
He's
Okay.
there, but it looks like his audio is not connected. Let's see if we can get him. Okay, muted, Mr. Carey. Now push unmuted. Turn up the volume on your phone or whatever device you're using.
He needs to unmute.
There
Okay.
we go. Now I think you can speak. Mr. Johnson?
No, we can't. We cannot hear him, unfortunately. Did you, I'm so sorry, Mr. Johnson. I will hit you in the chat and then we will figure out a way to get you your audio through, okay? Just a second.
Right.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Mr. Johnson is a local attorney that, you know, I've come to know, and he was going to answer
A
specific
participant has left the conference.
relates to contract law. But at this time, I'm going to go ahead and wind everything down, and I'll give every panel member the opportunity if they have a closing comment to make it. And I would like to say from the most
Arthur Henson
Has left the conference.
that we thank you all for joining us this evening and being a part of the conversation. And now I'll turn it over to you. And we'll go ahead and start with you, Ms. Reed, so that there's some order.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again so much, Commissioner Johnson, for having me this afternoon. This has been a great town hall. There's been a lot, obviously, from a lot of the questions that have come in, that this was really, really needed. So you really met the need here. And I'm glad that we'll have resources that we can provide for a lot of our listeners to the town hall. I just want to end by saying there were a couple of the questions that talked about optimism, and they thought maybe realtors were a little overly optimistic. I have a statement from the chief economist from the National Association of Realtors, Lawrence Young, and he predicts that because the industry has responded well, that's the real estate industry, has responded well to the challenging market conditions that we've had to work in. We've had to adapt to a lot of things. And the resilience and positivity that you see realtors displaying is because we've really had to adapt, because that's how we eat as well. So we've had to, adapt to work hard. And he feels that, what he's saying is that he feels that the market is going to pick up really, really quickly once this passes, because we did not have a stall. We just had a slowdown. So I just want to say that's why we're positive. This was a stall, not a slowdown. And I look forward to working with several of my peers on this panel. And if I can be of assistance to any of your constituents, Ms. Commissioner John, I'll be happy to help whatever I can do. It's not always about selling and making a commission. It's also helping.
Absolutely, because in times like this, we have to come together as community, and knowledge is important. And Mr. Morani, you actually reached out to the office, and we had the first conversation, and you sparked the whole conversation. And that's when we decided we've got to help people. And I want to thank you for being the person you are. I'd also like to say to anyone who is on this call that Mr. Morani brought to my home 500 masks. And I think at this point I have issued those in bundles of the 50, but I still have about 200 that are available. If you all are in need of masks or anything, you let me know. I truly came here to help and to serve. And I'm riding by the little seniors home. I'm putting masks in the mailbox because they've said I've been in the house and I now need to go out and I'm scared and I don't have. And I don't want us to live in fear, but I do want us to have knowledge and resources. So Mr. Morani, you're welcome to have a word if you'd like.
Thank you, Commissioner, for having me. It was a really great panel here. Thank you for having me on your virtual. I mean, it was a great idea to come together and all the great knowledge that we've shared with each other and the information. And again, I would echo what Ms. Faith has said, that we're here to serve the community. Regardless, the Lord has blessed us in many different ways to all of us. And at this point, I think it's some time that we would like to give back to the community and assist the members that are truly in need, even if we can touch a few members, and even if we can say, even if we can help one family at a time, this is how we need to do, and help those families to manage their bills and to give them words of wisdom and knowledge that we have in our professional lives, and assist them through the process and give them the positiveness and the hope that they can overcome these difficult times. Again, we are all here as one team. We will be here to support you guys. Again, it doesn't have to be about a service that you require, but if it's outside of the service that you need anything or any assistance of any matter, feel free to reach out to me and to all my other colleagues on this panel. We only have one common goal here, is to serve the residents of the county and to help the citizens of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, Ms. Mahone, I love you. I've worked with you to try to save homes. We didn't try, we did.
We did.
In the midst of what we're going through right now, all we need to do is come up with because I want us to be safe. I don't want to put anyone in harm's way, but I've got to figure out somehow how I can create a portal through DeKalb County and make sure it's not going to get me into a bind with some odds somewhere, because I kind of find binds where people can come and literally have direct access to folk like you. So with that said, let's plan something as soon as this passes over, because anyone that's in an adverse position, because there are many who do not have jobs, who have no idea where their stability will come from. We've got to get together and do another massive town hall for people that are facing foreclosure. And I'll let you close us out.
I just wanted to say thank you again, Commissioner Johnson. It is always a pleasure to speak and to be a part of whatever you're doing. I want us to understand most of all that we are in this thing together. And the only way we're going to get through this is together. Morningstar is available. We've been helping people stay in homes. We've been helping people purchase homes. That's not going to change. We just need you to not fear. I want to encourage you all to be educated on the process. Find out that there's help that's available with the resources that we have put on the display tonight. I want you to also take advantage of taking time out to look into the HEROES Act, because there is where the relief really is going to be for renters and landlords. And keep in mind, again, we are in this together. We're going to make it through this COVID-19, and everybody will get what they desire.
Absolutely. And with that statement, with being 1 minute over, you all go enjoy your families, have a good night, and be safe. And thank you so much for joining us. And if you're not receiving our newsletter, we put everything in our newsletter. And I say that District 7 has the best newsletter in DeKalb County.
I'll say so too.
And I stand by that. So if you're not getting my newsletter, this may be long, but all you have to do is type it in once. Visit our website, and the URL is CommissionerLorraineCochranJohnson.com. And if you just Google me, Commissioner Cochran Johnson, whatever you say,
A
I'm
participant has left the conference.
on the website, register for that newsletter, because we have a lot of good things coming up on Friday. We'll be donating 1,200 boxes of fresh produce and meat. So we are working on your behalf. That will be at Panthersville Stadium, and I believe it starts at 1 or 2 p.m. But you will receive it if it's in the newsletter. There is no questions asked. If you show up, you will receive those fresh fruits and meat, and you go away. So thanks again, and you all have a good night. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.